Infrastructure Services and Networks Subcommittee, and welcome to the staff and the public. We're starting off today with a public forum. We've got Graham Wall from Port Chalmers who wants to come. Graham, if you want to, please. And you're addressing us on recreation harbour matters. Is that right? You've got 5 minutes. Go for it.
Thank you. Representing Yachting New Zealand, really, but also a member of the Port Chalmers Yacht Club. So I speak on behalf of not just Port Chalmers Yacht Club, but all yacht clubs, I'd like to think. This follows on from a submission that I made to the Regional Council last month, and it involves dredging in some of the recreational areas. Whilst this may be a matter for the Regional Council to deal with, I believe it's a matter for both councils to deal with. This is about our commons, our recreational aquatic commons, the Crown area that we play in. We don't all play on oval parks, some of us play on the harbour. We need good access to those commons, to those play fields, and also these access areas primarily are public access areas which DCC invests quite a bit of money into. Without good access into the harbour, this investment by the DCC is somewhat mute. I'm not suggesting that you withdraw that funding. I suggest that you lobby strongly with the Regional Council and perhaps even put more funding in so that these facilities can be used widely for future generations to come. Now, the areas that I spoke on at the Regional Council were Carries Bay and Back Beach, so I'll just touch on them briefly to start off with. Back Beach has been silting up since the second reclamation went through. Judge Scanlon at the time of his ruling did intimate that mitigation processes would have to be put in place to make Back Beach viable. It has silted up quite a bit. There's been no hydrographic studies done to date to show evidence of this, but also the fact there's no hydrographic studies being done shows there's no evidence that it hasn't silted up either. So that's a bit of a weak argument when it has been put to us. The Port Chalmers Yacht Club has quite a vested interest in Back Beach. We own a wharf structure there, but it's not just the yacht club that uses it. We're actually a very small user of it. The biggest user is Joe Public, of which we don't know who they are, but they seem to enjoy it and they come there by the hundreds. There's a large array of vessels that are launched there, go in there, and with the siltation it's getting somewhat limited at low tide. It's used commercially as well in sort of ecotourism. The Monarch came in there on the 8th of April to pick up passengers from the cruise ships. They normally pick them up from the basin, but they couldn't because of the northerly winds, or the pontoon was playing up. There was a problem, so they came in and utilised the wharf that's owned by the yacht club. Not a problem, but if we want to again keep catering for this multi-million-dollar business, you've got to have some depth or some distance between the seabed and the keel of the Monarch, and between our keels and the seabed as well, if we're going to keep on enjoying it. And it's quite nice looking around here today. I know there's at least one councillor here who has enjoyed sailing at Back Beach with his son, and the mast may have touched the seabed, but nevertheless it was a good area and it was great to see a councillor enjoying it. So maybe later on Lee might be able to speak firsthand about his experiences there. Carries Bay, it's a similar thing. There's a public ramp there. I know the DCC is putting some work into it and there's going to be some digging being done there, but no disrespect to the department that's looking after that, without decent dredging out to the channel, again, that's a wee bit of a, like, it's nice, but it doesn't really solve the problem. Then moving away from those two particular areas, looking at the Otago Harbour up here, the boat harbour, of which the Otago Yacht Club is very much involved with, and there's dredging done there. That's being rested upon a club, most of that. Now the channel, from the sea channel to the entranceway, is not being done by the Otago Yacht Club. In fact, it's not being done by anyone. I think this body here should be lobbying both within itself and with the Regional Council to say, hey, without the entranceway being dredged, everything else is a waste of time, and we're going to sit back and watch a yacht club get rid of possibly up to $250,000 of their money and funding money for diddly squat. There is a public ramp there, there is public pontoons there, so it's not a private yacht club boat harbour. It is used by Joe Public. I've gone out there at times with kids in Optimus dinghies and they run aground at low tide, and that draws 2'6" in the old language. That is not a deep boat. After that it becomes a kayak club. And we don't want that. We want the kayakers to use it, but we want everyone else to be able to use it as well. Now, this is topical at the moment, I think, with the council, because Chris Morris, your friend at the ODT, wrote a nice article on the 13th of March, which says that on the cards again is the development of the Steamer Basin Harbourside project. And it's really nice Mayor Cull was quoted there saying there's aspirations and there's a common awareness that these are clearly untapped opportunities in the harbourside area. And I go along with that. But please don't forget the wider harbour, and that the harbour is here primarily, well, not primarily, but as well for the ratepayers of Dunedin. I went through the exercise a few years ago when it was Mayor Chin at the chair and Malcolm Farry and Jim Harland that had the harbourside proposal for the steamer basin. And one of their mock-up drawings had some mega super yachts in it, and they look jolly nice. I'd love to have one. There are a few of them at Viaduct Basin. We don't get many of them down here. We probably won't get many of them down here, irrespective of what we do in the steamer basin. They draw a lot of water. They need somewhere to go and play in. And generally, the owners are over in Bermuda at the moment anyway. But let's cater for the local boats, the local yachties, the person who wants to go launching their yacht at any tide to go out to the canyon to go fishing, for the yachties that want to go out and enjoy it, for the kayakers, for everyone that uses this harbour, we need these facilities. It's all well and good putting in nice foreshore recreational facilities, but unless the link is made to the wider harbour, then a picnic bench is just what it is, a picnic bench. And I think we can do far better for all of our citizens in this area with the harbour. This is our Logan Park, this is our oval, this is our tahuna. If Logan Park was blocked up at Butts Road, there'll be a hue and cry and the diggers will be down there now clearing Butts Road. This is our Butts Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Are you happy to take some questions?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I hope you got I'm sure you got a thorough implied hearing from the region, but I just want to ask if your understanding of the history of this aligns with mine. It's my belief that the prime reason why the Regional Council was granted by the Local Government Commission the entire ownership of the port company and its property companies was to offset the extensive cost of maintenance of the recreational and operational facilities of the harbour, including dredging. Is that your understanding of how history got us into the position we're in?
A lot of that came about during the amalgamation of the early 90s. At that stage, the RMA came in as well, which dispensed with the Harbours Act of 1950. I'm not too sure if there was a trade-off of future dredging. I know that dredging at this stage is primarily the shipping channel. One of the things I've been badgering on with the ORC is that the Otago Regional Council do need to realise that the Otago Harbour and Port Otago Limited are two different things. Port Otago uses Otago Harbour, along with the Port Chalmers Yacht Club, the Broad Bay Boat Club and all the rest. And if that was a trade-off made then, I don't think that's a fair trade-off for future generations.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gary?
Thanks for coming in, Graham, and talking about this. I'm keen to hear from you. I've got a couple of questions. One is around the private ramps and jetties that are used by the public. Would you consider there's an issue out there with the cost of maintenance for some of the clubs who have these kinds of facilities?
Yes, there is, and a lot of the clubs do struggle with this. Speaking primarily on the Port Chalmers Yacht Club, sure, we can afford it, and with our resources that we have some good tradespeople there. But the Regional Council doesn't necessarily make it easy, and we do pay for an engineer to come along every 5 years, and then the Regional Council, a couple of months later, sends someone else down to do another inspection, of which they then bill us. I know this is not to do with the DCC, but it's part of the don't clobber the people who are providing these facilities. And using the Port Chalmers Yacht Club wharf as an example, the smallest user of that wharf is our members itself, is the Port Chalmers Yacht Club members. The biggest user are the public. And we're happy about that. But please, if both councils could give some cognizance to the fact that a lot of the facilities around this harbour aren't publicly funded, aren't publicly owned, and aren't publicly maintained. They're maintained by volunteers, private people, and private clubs.
Thank you, and I've got two other questions.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask the Mayor? I mean, I don't know, Graham, if you're aware that we've had a motion at the council asking for the regional council to work with us on a harbour plan. Your Worship, has there been any progress on that? And just because it maybe set the context, if that's okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So, second question, just to ensure that people don't think this is a group of elitists, but ordinary people, would you be able to describe the kind of users of the harbour that you know about in your club, for example? And thirdly, interested to see your vision. What would be your vision? If this all came together and the dredging was done, how do you see the harbour being used? You've talked about how it can't be used at the moment, but I'd be interested to hear your vision.
Firstly, the makeup of boaties on this harbour range from some very wealthy, very rich people down to some very impoverished people and everyone in between. So it's a wee bit like the range of your ratepayers. There is a myth that we all sail America's Cup boats and we're holidaying in Bermuda at the moment, or we've got our boat tied up at Viaduct Basin. They are a very small minority of boat owners. No one can really afford those boats. Our membership is made up of juniors coming out of school, whose parents can't afford boats, so they use club boats. They're made up of people who are trying to pay off a mortgage and pay their rates and work and raise kids and enjoy their sport and introduce their children to it as well. And it's made up of retired people who own a boat, and some of these boats are worth, to them, there's no price. It's their boat, it's their house, it's their recreation. On a dollar value, they might be worth a few $1,000s. They could be worth a lot of thousands of dollars, but we don't have the super duper yachts that we have in the Viaduct Basin. My vision for the future, I would like to see good access to the harbour. I don't envisage that we're going to have Bermuda type facilities. I'm hoping that we don't even have a Viaduct Basin facility here along the Viaduct Basin lines. I'd like to see what Wellington has got. Have a walk along from the railway station round to Chaffers Marina and the Royal Port Nick Yacht Club. That's fantastic. Viaduct Basin, and Auckland, it's cut off from Joe Public to actually get down to the wharf and enjoy it. So I'd like to see plenty of access. I'd like to see a council, both councils, making it easy for clubs to survive, to provide for their membership. I'd like to see a lot more yacht racing on the harbour, but I'd also like to see the paddleboarders, kayakers, the fishermen. Yeah, it's not just about my personal interest, it's about recreational boaties.
Councillor Vandervis.
Thank you very much for coming along and giving us a very clear idea of what's going on. And thank you very much also for not referring to the fact that I just about drowned my son last time I was out there. When I went to talk to the people at the Otago Yacht Club, and they've put quite a bit of time and money into scooping all the sludge out of their particular marina. Their engineer guy told me that he believed that simply 2 passes of the New Era dredge would completely cure all their channel problems and they could deal with their inner harbour issue. Is that something that you would think is reasonable? I mean, I've only spoken to him about it. Does it sound reasonable to you that a couple of passes of the New Edge dredging boat would sort the problem?
Yes, the New Era wouldn't get into the boat harbour, but going as close to the entranceway, that would take a fair bit out. There's massive hoppers on that dredge.
Okay, so if it would work for the Otago Harbour Yacht Club, would that be something that would also be very useful at Back Beach?
Yes, it would. And the Back Beach area, it would be nice to dredge the whole thing, but it's not always feasible. But we've got to maintain around the wharf, the ramp, and hopefully if we can make that channel out to the shipping channel deep enough, the rest will sort of scour out over time.
And end up in it anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So what we're really talking about is the ORC authorising a couple of passes of the New Era at Back Beach and again at the Yacht Club. That would sort all the problems you're talking about?
I wouldn't want to say all the problems, but it would go a
Majority
long
of
way to mitigating, yes.
And it would be by far the most efficient way of doing it, do you think?
It would be, yep.
Because they've already got the gear there. Is there a problem with them getting rid of the fairly large number of cubic metres of sludge that they'd suck up?
There's, to the best of my knowledge, there's 3 spoil drops that they take offshore. One is designed just for sludge, and that's the one further south. There's a cost, transport cost.
But that's it.
But if the regional council is aware of that, which they do for the port, channel maintenance dredging.
Okay, so what should we do then through the chair as a council or even as individuals? What would you like us to do in terms of trying to persuade the regional council that actually a few extra passes of their dredge would create a whole lot of extra facility for a whole lot of
I would like,
users?
hopefully out of my presentation here today, it gets the conversation in between. I was really heartened to hear the Mayor sort of saying that so been raised that there's discussions with the ORC on a harbour plan. So I'd like to see this conversation sort of taking some root and just don't look at the next 20 years, look at the next 20 days, 200 days, look at what we need to do now. Sure, have a long-term vision, but let's please, I'm getting on. I don't want to wait too long, before it's too late.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Elder.
Hi, thanks for that submission. I look at the harbour every day and it's a fantastic asset for people of Dunedin, and the more people who go out there and recreate rather than use Xboxes, the better. The question I have is, it sounds like this dredging equipment is very good. Has the harbourside community approached Port Otago for a input? The Port Otago makes a lot of money for the regional council, and it also has contributed to Port Chalmers with those fantastic murals. Is this a thing that the port company could actually give as goodwill to the Dunedin community, and in particular the people who use the harbour?
The relationship that, like to say, the Port Chalmers Yacht Club and some other sporting bodies has, the Port Otago has, it varies, but from Port Chalmers' perspective, it's very good and they support us very well. But that's small bickies, really. When these sort of discussions have been had by different bodies with the Port Otago, it's very clear they are a commercial entity. Since the done away with the Otago Harbour Boards, or with harbour boards, they are set up as commercial imperatives. So therefore, being altruistic is not necessarily on their ledger. So it's the regional council. They own them. They can direct them to do as they see. Well, I see a head shaking there.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Malley.
Often as not, council-controlled organisations can't really take direct input from the councils that own them. But the 5 of the 11 members of the ORC are Dunedin councillors. Have you approached those Dunedin members of the ORC to see what their position is on this?
No, not since my last submission. I spoke to them as a council, but I haven't badgered them individually. I may well do that.
Might be a bad idea.
No other questions? Thank you, Graham. As I said earlier, there is a motion on the table from this council asking for a joint, not management group, but looking at the assets of the harbour as one, because of that boundary difference that most ratepayers aren't aware of. I will try and follow up with the CEO and see if that's gained any traction. Last time we put it up, it wasn't accepted by the regional council, but I haven't heard latterly where that's at. So I'll get back to you and let you know.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for the time today. If there was possibility of other organisations being involved in those discussions, then I would certainly put my hand up, or I could suggest some people that would be keen to jump on board.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you.